Boys, we are just over halfway done with the NFL offseason, and we are definitely patiently waiting for it to be over with already. But we already know we got the coaches signed, we got the free agency period done, we got the draft done, and now we are just waiting for the NFL schedule to be released. But most of these rosters are basically set, about 99% set. There might be a couple of moves here and there, might a couple other free agencies be added, but it's basically done. We all know that at this point. So in this video, I'm going to give you the top 2 teams that had the best offseason in my opinion, and the top 2 teams that had the worst offseason in my opinion. Let's get into it. A couple of side notes real quick. I do want to say that I'm not going to say these 2 teams that had a great offseason are going to be great teams, or the 2 teams that had the bad offseason are going to be bad teams. I do want to say that real quick, and like I said, I'll explain a little bit later in the video. But the first team I got, there's no order. I just picked 2 teams and that had a really good and really bad. But the first team for the good offseason will be the Chicago Bears. To be honest, it feels like the Bears have a good offseason every freaking offseason. Like, they're literally offseason winners every single year, and they still end up with 5 teams, but that's just the Bears. This year feels a little bit different though, unfortunately, as a Packer fan. I really do like the signing of the Ben Johnson for the head coach. He completely revamped that whole entire Lions team, and we've seen how that Lions team was phenomenal in the pass game and run game last year. He's going to be transitioning that over to the Bears, and they got really good weapons already as it is. They also completely revamped their offensive line, which that was their biggest weakness last year. They got Joe Thuney, they got Drew Dahlman, and a couple other pieces like Jonah Jackson too. So their offensive line was the worst in the league last year, so it can only get better, and I really like these acquisitions. They also had a couple of nice signings in free agency in the defensive side, like Grady Jarrett and Deo Odeimbago. I have no clue how to say his name, so I am so sorry. But those 2 players right there, they especially Grady Jarrett might be a little bit older, but he's still a pretty decent defensive lineman, and Deo is pretty good. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, they got Colston Loveland, they got these new weapons. I really like the pick of Luther Burden in the 2nd round. I really like this offense for the Bears. They got DeAndre Swift, of course, Caleb Williams going to his 2nd year. The offensive line has completely been revamped, which needed it so bad. Even last offseason, they didn't really address the offensive line. This year, they did. They got, of course, DJ Moore. They got Rome Odunze. So they got some really good young weapons. They got a better offensive line. Their defense was already a top 15 unit last year. They got a way better offensive coach this year as of right now. So the Bears definitely won this offseason, but who knows? They still might only win 4 games. The second team that had the best offseason, at least in my opinion, definitely the New England Patriots. Same with the Bears. They got a brand new head coach, as in Mike Vrabel, who's also already had coaching experience with the Tennessee Titans, and he did pretty good, taking them to the playoff a couple of years, and they ended up having a really bad couple of years. Then he ended up getting released, and now he had a whole offseason just to relax, chill out, and now he's joining the Patriots, where he all basically started from. They definitely signed a plethora of free agent players like Carlton Davis. They got Stephon Diggs, Milton Williams. Harold Landry. I'm so sorry. Like Morgan Moses. They signed all kinds of free agents this year, and they kind of needed to because A, their team had a lot of holes, but B, they also had a lot of money. The Patriots also had a very good draft, at least in my opinion, especially with Will Campbell as their 1st overall pick for them, and also Trayvon Henderson in the 2nd round. I think he's a pretty good running back, and also Kyle Williams, an underrated wide receiver from Washington State. They had a great draft. They had a lot of draft picks, period. They got a way better coach in Mike Vrabel, who actually a lot of players like. And again, he's already been a part of that organization because he was a player. And also, the free agency signings were pretty damn good. I mean, even if they end up being bust or whatever, or bad contracts, even though they might have paid or overpaid a little bit for them, I still think they had a really good offseason. I really like what they did. And honestly, they might be an 8-9 win team next year still. Drake May going to his 2nd year. He's got a better offensive lineman. He's got more weapons out there. Who knows? They might be more than 9 wins. So most of you guys probably agreed with my top 2 teams. I had the best offseason with the Bears and the Patriots, and I just explained why I think they had the best offseason. But the teams that had the bad offseason, you're going to disagree with me most likely. Starting off with the Super Bowl champions, the Philadelphia Eagles. And now let me get this straight real quick. Do I think they're going to suck this year? Absolutely not. I think they will be making the playoffs, most likely making the playoffs. But let me tell you why I think they had a bad offseason. The first thing I do want to mention real quick, they lost their offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore. He went to the Saints as the head coach. Losing coordinators is a pretty big deal. Can the Eagles overcome that? Absolutely, and they need to prove me wrong here. Obviously, this upcoming season, they still got great weapons like Devontae Smith. They got, of course, AJ Brown, Jalen Hurts. This team's still good. I want to kind of mention that real quick, but Kellen Moore did make that Eagles team a lot better. Of course, Saquon Barkley, forget his name for a second. The team's going to be good. I want to say that. But losing an offensive coordinator is a big deal. But not even just losing their offensive coordinator. They lost several players like Milton Williams, Josh Sweat, Darius Slay, Mekhi Becton, their offensive lineman who did pretty good last year. They lost a lot of key pieces, and they didn't really do anything in free agency. They signed a couple of smaller players to smaller deals. But again, this Eagles team was not bad. They're still not bad whatsoever, but they definitely took a hit, especially on the defensive side, losing Darius Slay, Milton Williams, Josh Sweat. Those are pretty good players. And also Brandon Graham retiring. Those are pretty big players they would be losing on defense. And again, they're going to have a good year for sure. Not saying they're going to be bad, but losing all those players, losing the offensive coordinator, losing other small coaches like that, coming off maybe the Super Bowl hangover, we're going to see how they're going to play this year. And again, I think they're going to be a playoff team, but you cannot say they had a good offseason. And the last but not least team we're talking about that had a bad offseason, I think it's pretty easy to say, the San Francisco 49ers. The only thing I really like what they did this offseason was get Robert Saleh back as the defensive coordinator because he knows what he's doing over there. He's already been in the system before. He knows, of course, Callahan, the coach. But other than that, there's a lot of negatives. You think the Eagles lost a lot of players? The 49ers lost Aaron Banks, Charvarius Ward, Javon Hargrave, Jalen Moore, Talanoa Hufanga, which is a safety, Dre Greenlaw, Leonard Fournette, and Malik Collins, I guess you can say, but it's a bigger name. But that's a lot of defensive players right there. And their defense was already banged up last year. Are they going to be a good team this year? I don't know. And also, I even forgot Deebo Samuels got traded right before the free agency period started. So they lost Deebo, which he was okay already as it is. But their draft wasn't too bad. They had a couple of nice pieces in defensive. They got the guy in the defensive round. I can't think of his name, of course, right now. But anyways, their draft was okay. They lost a lot of free agency players. They're kind of going through a small rebuild. And also, they still don't know what they're doing with Brock Purdy yet. But as of what I've heard recently, they're going to end up re-signing him, which I think I really don't know how to think about that because I think Brock Purdy is a good quarterback, but is he worth over $50 million? I don't think so. But as of right now, they're reporting that they're going to end up signing him here very soon. Of course, over $40 million for sure, but maybe $50 million, maybe $55. We don't know yet. But again, you can't sit here and tell me that the 49ers had a good offseason. They probably had one of the worst offseasons in the league. And I think, honestly, they probably had the worst offseason than the Eagles. But like I said, I think the 49ers was pretty easy to pick. The Patriots was pretty easy to pick. The Bears were pretty easy to pick. But the Eagles, you could fight me with it. I get it. But let me know what you think down in the comments. If you like my picks, if you disagree, obviously like the video if you like it. Subscribe if you're brand new. But I'm out of here. Deuces.